You take a step, and the air stretches like a sticky film. The tropical forest breathes heat and moisture, and it feels as if time itself has swollen with water. Your hand reaches into your pocket by habit, flashlight, a note, a quick call. Here those gestures are like opening the wrong door. One extra beam, one careless word on the airwaves, one gulp of raw water turns the day into a fight with consequences. Why is something that takes no effort today such a risky choice there? The answer begins with this. There is no background here. Rain is not just weather, it is a state of the world that does not switch off. Mud is not an inconvenience, but an element that threatens to smother a cable under its own weight. The forest is not green scenery, but a dense medium of vines, roots, and insects where any mistake carries farther than your voice. You are a signalman in New Guinea, a cable reel on your shoulder, a portable radio on your chest, ciphers and batteries in your bag. The habit of saying, "Check the line," produces a new forced march through the thicket. Somewhere, a branch tore the wire. Somewhere the signal drowned in downpour. It seems you could just switch to radio, right? It seems so. In reality, a storm jams the airwaves, the humidity eats your contacts, and an extra transmission in the night stillness is a clue for anyone listening closely. That is not dramatization. It is the work instruction that people violate exactly once. At home, water runs from a tap. Here the tap is a stream that yesterday whispered at your ankles and today has jumped its banks and drags away anything poorly secured. Water is close, clear, and seems clean. But you decide not by taste, by consequences. If you drink, you boil it and wait for it to shift from dangerous to tolerable, paying with time you do not have even for sleep. Purification tablets lie in your pocket, and you know you cannot skip them, otherwise later turns into already. The choice is simple only in words: drink less and weaken, or drink properly and spend precious minutes on fire and security. Set a pot, steam and smell, rise. Will that be noticeable from far away? It depends on the wind and on who is listening to the world at that moment. And every sip is less about thirst than discipline, because your body forgives whims and the jungle does not. Food is not a menu, but a calculation. Cans grow heavier with every turn of the trail. Dry rations are saved like matches. Hot food is always better for strength and spirit, but any flame is a risk. Can you get by on cold food? You can. But cold food does not warm you, and the lingering damp steals heat from body after body. Again, you count not calories but minutes. How long to kindle, how long to wait, how long to hide the traces. And you count hands, whose will be free while the fire burns, and whose are on watch, because smoke is not just comfort for your own, but a landmark for others. Shelter has no look. It is not a postcard tent, but a thin attempt to separate yourself from all-pervading damp. The ground lives its own life, becomes a sponge, and at night gives back a chill that seeps through clothing that refuses to dry. Dry socks hide in a waterproof bag like a small reserve of tomorrow's freedom, and still in the morning they are a little wet. Wait out the downpour is advice for people with walls. Here rain is like guard duty. One leaves, another takes over. So you do not wait for rain, you wait for a chance. You learn to pitch tarps so water runs off, to cut a shallow ditch around where you sleep, to set guy lines so a single gust does not rip them loose. It feels easier. The tarp stands, the fire catches. In reality, that is the door to the next problem. Smoke and light travel farther than a whisper. And the tarp that shelters you today will pull a sagging cable down tomorrow if you did not account for the tilt of branches and the habits of wind. A signalman's job does not like clocks. It likes breaks, literal ones. In daylight, you cut a path where none existed. Vines yield to the knife. The cable wants to ride higher on branches so it does not drown in liquid clay. At night, you follow the chain of problems. A branch chafed the insulation somewhere. A hasty heel kinked the conductor. A thunderfront hit a mast. The field telephone is your friend because a wire carries quiet and precision. Radio is the safety net, but a capricious one. The antenna catches not just voices, it catches the whole world crackling and hissing with electricity. A Morse key seems simple until humidity turns it into a stubborn neighbor. You press and it sticks for a fraction, and that fraction can cost a repeat. By dawn, the line must have its voice back. Afterward, it is not work that will ask for payment. Your health will. And if in peacetime, take another loop is a trifle, here any loop is a scored distance with a grim finish if you misjudge the pace. The tropics do not shoot, but they hit accurately. Wet clothes chafe, and what was nothing yesterday wants to spark a fever today. Mosquitoes are not a nuisance, but couriers, bringing what will take your strength for a long time. Bitter tablets are not an option, but a regimen. Skip them, and luck, not discipline, will have to save you. Skin begs for air, while air brings damp. Any scratch grows temperamental. It demands clean water you hate to spend, and clean cloth you want to save for something worse. The habit of "I'll tough it out" plays against you. Prevention sounds boring in peacetime. Here it sounds like a chance to walk normally tomorrow. Boredom is cheaper than another night of swaying with weakness. And yes, even a strong body yields if sleep comes in scraps and food by chance. You learn to respect the banal, dry your insoles, change a bandage, oil the contacts. All those boring acts add up to what people call endurance. Safety here equals order, not boldness. Radio discipline is not a letter for a report. It is the economy of every word. Chatting about life on the air is like planting a lantern on a path you want to keep invisible. Say everything's fine quickly becomes say where you are. Field wire loves to break exactly where you are not expected, on a slope, at a ford, under a hanging root. To fix it, you leave cover, and remember that camouflage is not paint or netting, but behavioral silence. Locals are not extras, but neighbors with their own interests and fears. Respect and caution work better than threats. And if an end-run gesture seems to speed things up, ask yourself how many people stand on the other end, expecting you to choose not faster, but correct. Here it is obvious that responsibility is not a feeling, but a way to act when comfort asks the opposite. Rain ought to be an ally. It hides, muffles, erases tracks. In reality, rain is a diligent informer. It snaps branches exactly where you tied the antenna. It eats the slope where yesterday's wire ran. It pulls beads of water from sagging insulation that will turn into shorts. Wind delivers brittle trunks, and each trunk is a fresh knot of trouble. Leeches, ants, mold, these are not horrors for effect, but the forest's bookkeepers who deduct your time and attention drop by drop. The sober choice is to stop fighting nature and start accounting for it. Sling higher, tie more often, leave slack, accept that no solution will be perfect, and move anyway. There is no romance in that. There is statistics. The fewer illusions, the better your chances that the line will live through the next storm. Supply is a separate nerve. You are not the only one holding the network. Someone carries batteries, someone a box of rations, someone a can of fuel for a generator that may refuse to start at the worst moment. Sometimes an aircraft drops a load by parachute, and then the whole day goes to finding it. You would think, machines fly above the jungle, so it is simpler. But even a precise drop can hang in the canopy, and you stare upward, counting how much time, how many hands, how many ropes you need to retrieve what your link will die without in a few hours. Any crate found is not just joy, but new logistics. Haul it, shelter it from water, split it, so everyone gets enough. You learn the main truth. Tomorrow's success starts with someone's unnoticed work today. You walk and read the forest. The ground shifts within a few steps. Sand turns to sticky clay. Roots become steps and traps at once. Tracks dissolve before your eyes. Yesterday's trail is no trail. Leaves dump water on your shoulders. Every leaning branch is a whip ready to knock off your hat and drop the reel. You become strict by necessity. Step, glance, tie, step. Not because you love order, because otherwise you will not last. An extra centimeter of sag today is a long hour of repairs tomorrow. No one cancels that ratio. It is baked into the place like roots into soil. Sometimes a rare gift arrives, a short window of quiet. The rain weakens, the mist thins. It feels easier. That ease is treacherous. Quiet means everything is audible. Your rustle, your whisper, your clumsy try to step over a root. Again the choice, speed up and risk a mistake, or keep the same tempo and pay in time. Does that choice have a right answer? The right thing is whatever preserves the line. The thought sounds dull until you sense that someone at the far end waits for a short word that will shape someone else's decision. Working aloft is another song. An antenna needs height, and you need footing. A tree seems trustworthy until you learn how easily a rotten limb breaks under the weight of a wet rope. Dry trunks are few. Those that are dry are often powdery within. You swaddle the mast in leaves so it will not glare, so it will not sing. You raise a section, and every tug ripples down your shoulders, palms, back. Can you do everything slowly and correctly here? You can. But the downpour is not a patient spectator. It shuts the window the moment you crack it open. And at height, the law of small things always applies. A mesh of leaves catches insulation. A bird perches where it should not. A sudden breath of wind twists the antenna to the wrong angle. There is paperwork, too, without which a connection is just a murmur into space. Forms, codes, signatures you must check by light, and light means an extra beam. Cipher is not a toy. Miss a letter and a command turns to nonsense. So you learn to write in the dark and read by memory so other eyes see nothing extra, and your own do not fail you. Fingers shrivel from damp, a pen drops blots, a pencil breaks at the worst place. You hold a sheet and realize the world here resists even letters. Still, order on paper becomes order in action. Everyone knows what silence means and when to speak. Fatigue accumulates not in numbers, but in trifles. A slightly over-tightened strap, damp that never leaves your boots, a tiny cut from a vine that snags you again and again, a bruised nail. Yesterday you did not notice, today it bothers, tomorrow it is a problem. Prevention again, the same boring one, dry, clean, change. You do it without pose or heroism simply because nothing else works. And a thought appears you rarely say aloud. Endurance is not about muscles. It is about patience for boring things repeated day after day. To endure does not mean to conquer. To endure means not to snap where you want to finish this right now. Social life at the front is not a break for chat. It is a network of invisible rules that keeps people together. Letters home are rare and are read later than you would like. And censorship is not evil, but an attempt not to gift extra information to those who wait for it. You stack words so your family understands I am alive, and so no one else understands anything more. Inside a section, there are small rituals. Who goes first to the water barrel, who douses the fire last, who keeps the common stock of strong words for rough minutes. This is not a place for big judgments. It is a place for simple deeds. Trust grows from those deeds. You do not shout, you do not promise the impossible, you do what you must. That boring trust makes bearable what otherwise would not be. It can feel like just a little more, and things will start to improve. You understand the route, know trouble spots, foresee weather's whims. Then a new loop opens. A landslide higher up slices, with an invisible shovel, not just your wire, but all your plans. You go there not because you love difficulties, but because every minute of a silent line is a minute someone did not get an order. An extra step here is one less somewhere else. This is the price of mistakes. No fine written out, no calculator. It arrives quietly when you are again knee-deep in water and grasp that there is no way back, because back is silence and forward is a chance to give back a voice. Money? Here it speaks rarely and softly. Pay gets posted on paper, and paper stays paper. It does not dry clothes, deliver batteries along a trail, or change the weather. At the front, price is seldom measured by coin. You pay with time and shoulders. A can of meat does not cost an Australian pound so much as the path of the person who carried it. The Australian pound in such places is merely a guidepost, approximately by the cost of a daily bread ration in 2025. If you manage to buy an extra meter of height for a cable, you pay not at a market, but in an internal ledger, whose hour of sleep to borrow, who will go with you, where to find dry matches. Pay later here means pay right now in risk, because any postponed trifle returns as a larger debt. People who have lived here for centuries know water's movements better than maps do. They hear how forest sound changes before a real downpour and see what a new eye mistakes for sameness. Talking to them is not service, but a meeting of two logics. Yours is about lines and signals. Theirs is about trails and signs that do not make it to paper. Someone becomes a guide, someone a neighbor responsible for a village and its way of life. Respect is not a mark in a notebook, but the only way to chart a route without burning bridges. Where you have orders, they have the right to caution. A shared path does not grow by itself. It is stamped by steps in which each person adjusts for the other. If you take in that simple truth, errors shrink. Sometimes a connection returns at the first touch of a terminal. That is a good day. Sometimes it comes after 10 attempts, 3 detours, 2 fallen branches, and a brief faint from fatigue. That is a regular day. There is no heroism or pomp in it. There is craft and stubbornness. You save silence like a spare house key. You use it when you are really pressed. You ration words because every word has a price. You laugh not loudly but honestly when you catch a clean signal on the first try. In that moment, the forest seems quieter than it is because your task for the day is finally not a task. Hours like that are a rare prize you cannot carry over to tomorrow. Humidity turns iron and cloth into enemies. Rust appears not by calendar, but immediately. Oils thicken or run where they should not. Contacts gather a thin film invisible to the eye, but audible as a steady hiss over a voice. Why does metal remember damp so well? And why do you so easily forget to check again and again? The answer is simple. You have things that seem more important. And again the craft of prevention. Wipe, warm, close, test, record, repeat. No secrets, only discipline. No shine, only reliability. If someone asks, what is the main thing in signal work? You may not say a single clever word. You will say, do the boring work on time. Another danger is false confidence. A few days without breakdowns make you generous with risk. I'll make it. I'll slip by. The rain is not that strong. Suddenly the wire runs low because I'll lift it later, and later becomes a long sprint in a downpour at the worst time. False confidence loves the quiet of success. Its cure is the habit of asking yourself awkward questions. Why is it quieter than usual here? Why is the signal cleaner? Why is the trail dry? Answers rarely please, but they often save you from surprises. Night silence deceives. It seems the forest sleeps, but the forest runs on a different schedule. Sounds change, and every rustle of any size gains meaning. Fingers forget the fire's warmth a minute after leaving the coals, but they remember a cable's pattern. You walk along the line as if reading a long sentence in an unfamiliar language. A slight vibration here, taut tension there, the muffled patter of rain on a leaf, and then a different echo. That means something shifted, something fell, something snagged. Hours are what that something eats. Even if all ends well, no one applauds. You just lie down on a damp pad and realize, tomorrow the same song, and that is good. Because the same here means alive and working. Safety is built the same way. It rests on little things no one debates. Do not smoke where the flame carries farther than a voice. Do not say on the air what you can send by wire. Do not save on foot bandages. The saving costs more. Do not go solo when you need a group. Those do nots add up to a yes. The chance a line survives the next storm. When it comes to discipline, you find real courage is not a flourish, but the ability to bear your own urge to do as is easier when as is right contradicts it. Sometimes reward arrives in a strange form. For instance, as a clean sound suddenly born from static, like a familiar shape stepping out of fog. Radio stillness parts, and a short word, the one everyone awaited, passes through the rain. It is not a miracle, but the sum of invisible acts. Someone dried contacts in time. Someone tensioned a guy line. Someone shut down idle chatter. You may never learn the names of those whose small choices formed that moment. But you remember that this is how reliability works, without signatures, without fanfare, without extra words. Time here is unusual. It does not move by the clock. It moves by tasks. Sometimes one task consumes all daylight. Sometimes 3 fit in a brief gap between rains. Important things do not hurry. Urgent ones gain no true weight because there are many of them. You learn to separate. Fix what will bring down the rest. Leave the secondary for when the window opens. Stop leveling everything by emotion. The forest is a poor advisor on urgency. It always screams, now, and is almost always wrong if you only listen to it. Sometimes you find yourself on an edge where familiar gear does not help. Batteries drain earlier than planned. A new cable has a fault no eye can catch. Strangers enter the air. You hear that you do not interest them, but they listen to you carefully. At those edges, the chief skill surfaces, the ability to make unpopular choices. Say, we stay silent now. Say, we go longer but quieter. Say, we change the plan. In peacetime, they would call it responsibility. Here it is just work. There are also people whose help does not count hours. Porters who know how to pass where the map shows nothing. Neighbors who will point you to slower, cleaner water. Comrades who will not ask why you move slower than they want. They see faster would be dumber. In those moments you understand enduring a day is a team task. You hold the line. They hold the world around it. Somewhere amid yet another repair, another check, another circuit, you catch yourself no longer fighting the place. You live in it. You do not submit, but you do not argue forever. Are you stronger? Maybe. You are certainly more attentive. You no longer try to defeat rain. You align with it. You do not run a line through the forest. You lead it along the forest's nerves. You do not pick a fight with the night's life. You fit its rhythm. That is not making peace. That is professionalism. Gear, too, needs a character it does not possess. People supply it. Somewhere insulation gets touched up with makeshift varnish. Somewhere a piece of bamboo stands in for porcelain, so bark will not chafe a cable. Somewhere 2 bad terminals become one that lasts till morning. Those small tricks do not enter manuals. They live in heads. In other words, experience is not knowledge of smart terms, but a collection of simple fixes that once helped and therefore earned a place in the set, called I will try this first. Sometimes you must solve a problem that does not exist in peacetime, how to keep silent correctly. Silence is also a language. It says, I am in position, if you are silent where everyone knows why you are. It says danger, if you are silent at the wrong time. It says on plan, if planned quiet holds without hiccups. Strange? Only at first glance. Any system lives by rhythm. If rhythm breaks, you know something is wrong, even without words. So you need not only speech, but a silence people understand. Your work is like a seam. If it is good, it is invisible. If not, everyone looks at it. You have to accept that. Praise and blame are not fairly distributed. There is one fact. The link is either there or not. That teaches an inner silence. Do what you must. Do it on time. Do it so you do not have to explain later. Not because others are harsh, but because otherwise you will be harsh with yourself, and rightly so. By day's long end, the world simplifies. You know how many dry bandages you have left. You know where a wire sags dangerously low. You know whom to tell no, so you can say yes tomorrow in the place it matters. That is self-management, with no slogans. It lets you wake up and continue. In that sense, "you would not last a day" is an honest warning for those who try to live here as at home. But swap your logic, and it becomes clear. Enduring here means recognizing other laws without surrendering your own. And still the honest answer is the same. Try to live this as you do at home. You will not last a day. Home reflexes hurt here. This reality demands other reflexes. Survival is bound to three simple but heavy things. First, environment is stronger than individual will. Damp, rain, clay, biology are not mean or evil. They simply are. They break gear and schedules if you ignore them. Any "I will tough it out" smashes against one fact. Patience without planning is a path to larger damage. The practice level meaning promise less, check more, run less, look back at the forest more, believe less in maybe, trust more in knots and insulation. Second, discipline matters more than convenience. For people's safety and for the meaning of communication, you give up quick fixes, extra words. I will just switch on and say it. Order is not form. It is a way to shrink risks for everyone tied to the line. Radio silence, camouflage, routes, preventive routines, those are not extra demands, but the skeleton of survival. Where impulse wins, those who rely on you lose. Discipline, contrary to myth, does not make a person mechanical. It frees them from the most destructive impulse, to do as is easier when you must do as is right. Third, logistics costs more than money. Time and effort cost more than any banknote because for every can, battery, and dry match, someone already paid with a journey no ledger shows. Real economy here runs on memory carts. How many steps? How many hands? How many hours? Any mistake carries an interest rate, but is paid not in rubles or pounds, paid in new circuits of the trail under rain. When the talk turns to price, it is apt to recall. The Australian pound then was a guide on paper, roughly by the cost of a daily bread ration in 2025. But the real cost is an extra run in a downpour, an extra sleepless night, an extra meter of wire you had to restring. What do we underrate today? The reliability of basic systems. A water supply that gives water at once. No boiling, no tablets, no glances over your shoulder. Legal predictability that removes moral traps from every step. Access to medicine, where prevention does not compete with work. Communication that seems invisible because somewhere people keep it steady and quiet. We think such goods arrived on their own because we do not see those who stretch the invisible threads every day. If this episode teaches anything, it is simple. Familiar comforts are not background. They are someone's careful work, repeated thousands of times. You look up. The forest murmurs, as always. Far away, someone waits for a short phrase. Not a long story, not an emotional confession, but a dry, precise phrase on which another person's decision depends. You press the key and say exactly as much as is needed. More is luxury, less is sloppy. In that instant, the huge, slow, wet world seems to obey a right habit for a second, the habit you grew here through fatigue, boredom, and stubbornness. You will return and pour water from a tap again without watching the clock. You will speak without code. You will fall asleep without thinking about a drainage groove around your bed. Maybe weave a few tropical lessons into that peacetime ease. Check what should work anyway. Save words when they add nothing. Think about consequences before tempo. See people not as parts of a mechanism, but as those whose work holds up your work. Do not confuse comfort with reliability. Remember that communication is not only machines but caution, respect, and choosing must over want. For now, you are here. Here, everything is honest. There are no pretty feats. There is a life held together by order. No grand proclamations. There are short signals that reach their addressees. No random, "we got lucky." There are dozens of small decisions that add up to reliability. If you ask why you would not last a day, the answer is simple. A day here is not 24 hours, but a long chain of agreements with nature, gear, and people. Break one, and you will pay again for all the others. Hold them, and you can call a world where water has a tap, medicine has a schedule, and the network has its familiar invisibility. That is the most important reward with no price or exchange rate. Silence on the line when everyone needs silence to mean all is well, and a clear voice exactly when it is needed for the task.